Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to Solutions, Not Just Problems. We are your co-hosts, Vanessa K and Be Real. So this month, we have been opening up talking about relationships, and we're specifically talking to people who are looking to get married, those who are intentionally dating and thinking seriously about getting married. Last week, we talked about things hindering a woman from finding the right man. Today, we're going to focus in on the same topic, but from the man's perspective. Why men struggle to find the right woman. Be real. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking forward to having this discussion today.
Yeah.
And we finally shifted things over to the men's side. So I know a lot of y'all out there will be happy about that. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting today. I think we're going to touch on some things that maybe some people haven't thought about. And I think it's going to be a real interesting topic. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. So what is some of the things that come to your mind from a man's perspective? Um, you know, s- why do men struggle finding a woman? What is one of the things that hinder them?
Your physical appearance can hinder you. Your inability to earn or to make a sufficient amount of money in order for you to be attractive to women. Just your self-esteem and self-image and how you view yourself as a man. Believe it or not, a lot of men, suffer from low self-esteem. And there is a burden of performance on men that women simply don't have. Okay. And they say that women just have to be and men have to do. They have to perform. Okay. So it's a struggle going all the way back to, junior high school and high school when you were trying to attract that woman that you were interested in that you thought was attractive and she kind of looked at you like you was a scrub, you know.
Right.
And and that can kind of, remember the old TLC
Sitting
days?
on the left-hand side
I'm saying
of your best friend's
Oh,
side.
yeah, remember all the 90s songs with the MC Light and the TLC and calling you a scrub and this. Well, with a lot of guys that really got to them, especially like when we were coming up in the 80s and 90s, just about every dude was struggling for the most part. So if you wasn't somebody who stood out and you were driving a nice car or perhaps you had a lot of money in your pocket, it was often difficult for you to meet women. And my thing is in the hood, there's three things that people look at, and I'm talking about from the black perspective and how I grew up as far as men. You either making money, you're a ball player, okay, or you got the looks. Okay. And if you didn't have one of those three things, but you weren't an athlete, popular, you didn't have a whole lot of money to take women out on dates, or you just wasn't a really good looking guy that women were attracted to up front, it's always been a struggle. And that
Mm.
that 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 our childhood can really have an impact on who we are as adults.
Yes.
Sometimes that sits with people. That's why you see these athletes right now. I'm not going to name names, but you know who's out there
Hmm.
doing everything they can to try to get with women. They're spending money. They're willing to accommodate them in any kind of way just to get with a female. Well, a lot of that has to go back to when they were in high school and maybe a young man. They had a difficult time, attracting women.
Mm.
So a lot of that sticks with them. That self-esteem and self-image can really impact a man.
You know, from a woman's perspective, I even wasn't aware that I think these feelings get underplayed. They get unacknowledged. It brings to mind men suffer in silence
Mm,
with these types of feelings because our society doesn't even acknowledge it, right? Men are not supposed to have these feelings. They're the strong ones, so these types of issues go unrecognized,
mm,
and that's what I think of. And if it does come out, it's viewed as a weakness, that man has a weakness. So low self-esteem, I'm finding that it does, it is out there and in existence with men, and we have to be more um, aware of it.
mhm. And
Another thing is fear and rejection, fear of rejection and social anxiety. That's the fear of being turned down or embarrassed. It often stops men from approaching women or engaging in social situations. Well, just like with the women, I would say that problem's not with the man. That problem's with the women.
Mm.
It plays into people approval. Get past that. Just keep going at it. Know what you want to do. Um, do you see fear and anxiety of rejection? In as a male? I
Absolutely.
won't put you on a spot. Do you experience this as
Nah,
a male?
because you know why? What I've learned is, first of all, I don't really look at a woman's reaction to what I say. Okay. In other words, I'm not trying to get validation. So if I go up to a woman, I say, hey, how was your day or whatever, and she looks at me like, are you talking to me? I don't really care,
Mm,
to be honest with you. So you have to kind of have like a hard shell where you're not really concerned about what her reaction is going to be. The other thing about me too is I really don't even speak to women that don't speak to me first.
mm,
I don't, it's not that I don't acknowledge them or I'm not respectful. I don't hold doors, please, thank you, excuse me, that type of thing. But in terms of engaging in a conversation, if there's not a business component to it, or I'm not really really attracted to her, like, wow, she's stunning. You know what I mean?
mhm.
I'm going to pretty much ignore her. So the rejection part is never something that I experience. And mainly because if I don't see any type of what they call choosing signals, like a woman is actually interested in me in any kind of way, I'm not approaching it at all.
So you look for the social cues before you
Absolutely.
proceed.
Absolutely. And I would really recommend to men that you really get with the women that like you. Okay. And trying to be persistent and trying to be persuasive with the flowers and the candy and the this and the that. I mean, yeah, you might be able to win her over a period of time, but to be honest with you, it's really not worth it because at the end of the day, she wasn't really interested in you to begin with. So really, it's always going to be where you got to do so much extra just to keep her attention, as opposed to when a woman sees you and she's like, "I like that guy."
Mm,
That's what you need to be doing. And I understand that doesn't work for everybody. Not every guy is tall or good looking or whatever the case might be. So there may be some men out there that need to try a little bit harder. Okay, I get that. I understand that. But I'm a real big believer in staying in your lane and being attracted to what's attracted to you. Okay.
mm.
So, I mean, let's give it a number. Let's say you're a 6 or 7 guy, right?
Here we go
You're,
with that six again.
hey, it
Six
is
at
what it is.
best.
It is. But let's say you're a 6, right? You're really probably not in the same league with a 9 or a 10. Okay. And most guys, they want the best looking woman that they can get, just like the woman is looking for the best, man that she can get in terms of, who he is as a leader, who he is in terms of being a provider, protector, the whole nine. We're all looking for the best possible deal. But I think with guys, a lot of times we need to go and date the women that are probably attracted to us in what I call, in our league. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So men are struggling with the same thing as the women, shopping outside their league. That's what I'm hearing, and it's important that we do realistically look at ourselves and look and examine our league, what women are in our league. And a lot of times, like we mentioned last week on last week's show, that you have that 1% that are tied to the big dollars and they're high profile, and then you have maybe that low percentage of the true rejects, that we just don't want to engage in. But then you have this big pool of the in-betweens.
Mm,
We seem to constantly overlook that pool of people.
yes, yes, I agree. And there's a statistic out there that says men between the ages of 18 and 28, and I know that's kind of outside of our demographic of who our audience is, but those men haven't even approached a woman in the last year.
Mm,
That barista who's working at Starbucks or that guy who's stocking the shelves at your local grocery store, I'm sorry, um, he's being overlooked. He could be a great guy, you know what I'm saying?
mm,
But because he doesn't have the earning potential, or he's seen as what we called earlier, quote unquote, a scrub, okay, a lot of times women are overlooking those dudes and saying, nah, I'm not interested in that. Why? Because most of the time, uh, we want to live a certain lifestyle. And let's be honest, a barista at Starbucks or someone who's stocking groceries is not going to be able to provide that lifestyle.
So that shoots their self-esteem down even further, that
Yes,
rejection.
yes. So now there's this struggle because there's only so many jobs out there that pay, let's say in excess of $50,000 a year.
Hmm.
Okay. The average person makes about what, 45, maybe
Hmm.
50 grand tops,
Hmm.
depending on the
Depending
area
on
that
where
you live in.
you're located.
Yeah, yeah, depending on where you're located. Um, so when we're trying to get with these high earners or guys who make, the six-figure guys or in excess of $100,000, those men are very short supply.
Mm.
So a lot of women out there, y'all just need to get with a regular guy who's making a decent salary, put your money together and build together.
Mm.
Because a lot of times that really good guy that you can build with, over time he's going to be successful. And what
Right.
we don't realize is men don't really stop becoming successful until they're about 35 years old.
Mm.
Okay. Anybody under 35 is still struggling, still trying to find himself.
Right.
You know? And if you look at most people who are really, unless you're a rapper, singer, or an athlete, that type of thing, yeah, they hit the lottery. But for
Right.
most guys, it takes about a good, 30, 35 years before you start to become the man that you're going to be.
The other thing I can see prohibiting men is again our social media uh, culture now. After school or college, just like women, men have fewer natural ways to meet women, right? And unless they're involved in hobbies, they have to come out of the gaming, the online, and get out into the community, get out there and be seen. Uh, Limited opportunities can also prohibit you from finding the right person.
Yeah, I mean, we don't socialize as much as we used to in person anymore. That's obvious,
Mhm.
So when it comes to, let's say, going to a nightclub where we used to meet people, or the local skating rink, or even your local, bar and grill where you might have live entertainment, that stuff is really has been minimized. I remember when I first came to Atlanta, I was out probably every other night, meeting people, meeting women, just enjoying myself. And now it's so difficult to be able to meet somebody because if you go out, it's $20 a pop, it's $20 a get in.
Mhm.
Then you got a gratuity you got to pay. Before you know it, you're spending $100, $150 just to
Right.
go to and sit down and get a bite to eat and hear a live band. And this is a local band. It's not even something like a Babyface or yeah, as I was saying, it's very difficult and very expensive to date these days. I remember when you used to go out $50, you'd be able to, have a good time. But now, just going to a local restaurant and just having drinks and maybe appetizer and it's gotten to be so expensive. Which is why a lot of times men are saying, hey, let's get together for a coffee date. And
Mhm.
it's weird because there are certain women out here who see that as being an insult. And what they don't realize is when you're a guy and you're dating women, okay, we don't have an enormous amount of income or an unlimited amount of income to spend on dating.
Right.
Okay. But most men don't have $500 to $1,000 a month to spend on dating. Some do, some are doing very well where they can afford that. But
But
if
again,
someone,
it's not the majority.
no, exactly, and if someone's trying to meet you and trying to get to know you and know who you are, a coffee date where, maybe you drop $20 on a honey bun or something and a cup of coffee is a lot easier than you going out and saying, hey, I'm gonna drop 150, 200, at the local steak place,
And then to have
So
the woman say, "Yeah, I'm not interested."
exactly, exactly. And there are women out there that go out specifically who are not interested in men, okay?
Yeah.
Simply trying to use it as a way to get out the house and get a free meal. Okay,
Hmm.
let's be honest. And it's sad that we're doing things like this instead of really trying to get to know somebody, because that could be the person that could be your significant other or that partner moving forward. So a
Right.
lot of you are missing out because you think that, hey, if I'm not hitting a home run and I'm not going to the local, you know, top steak joint or whatever the case might be. Remember the woman who talked about she wasn't going to go to what's the restaurant, the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't
And
going to do.
that's pretty good. I like the Cheesecake
Come on,
Factory.
come
What's
on,
wrong with the
come
Cheesecake
on.
Factory?
Listen, any woman, I'm gonna put it out there right now. I'm gonna put it out there right now, guys. Any woman that's unwilling to go to the Cheesecake Factory, okay, automatically don't even mess with her. I'm gonna put it out there right now. Okay, leave her the hell alone. Seriously. All right, because at the end of the day, she's not the one coming out her pocket. And that's the other thing too, ladies. Until you stop paying for dates, okay, don't question where we're trying to take you.
Mhm.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to get to know you. You know, the Cheesecake Factory or the steak place or whatever the case might be, that comes afterwards. That comes after we get to know you and you're our girlfriend. We're not trying to entertain every single woman that we meet, and drop 150, $200 on you. Okay. I'm just wanting to keep it 100 because once again, I am Be Real. So
Mhm. Be real.
yeah, and I got to come up with these every show, Vanessa. I got to make sure I come up with this every time and keep it 100 because we're out here thinking, oh, I'm just going to try to get over on it. Nah, you're not getting over on nobody. We're gonna treat each other well. Men and women.
And
That's what
how
this.
about hobbies or charity events or community events? Like
Man,
you can meet people there as well. It doesn't always have to be dropping the money and women have to be open to that, be open to going on a hobby, on a hike, something outside of social media, like or gaming. But there's other ways to form dates without having to spend so much money.
well, there's a lot of women out here, quite frankly, that think if you're not spending money, it's not a true date.
Again, like you
You
said,
know,
they may not be the ones that you want to date.
leave them alone, guys. Leave them alone.
With that, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We are back, everyone. So let's start off this segment by talking about unrealistic expectations. Men, just like women, set unrealistic expectations. The standards are too high, or they have some preconceived notions on how dating should be, how that other person should be. But this leads to disappointment and avoidance. We got to go into this being open minded. Be real. What's your thoughts on being open minded? Because that
Uh,
can be scary too, you know.
Yeah, I do think that sometimes, men do go in with expectations of not just being able to have, that consistent conversation, but also the physical too. Sometimes when we meet someone that first time, let's say you're out at a club, right? And you meet a female and you got the lights and the drinks and the high heels and the makeup and all this stuff, right? And she's looking good. And then the next time you see her, it's a disappointment because what you envisioned, the night before didn't quite add up to what you were looking for, what you thought she was going to look
And
like.
daggone lights will deceive you every
Man,
time.
let me tell you, club lighting gives everybody 2 points. Let me tell you, not just women, but men too. Um, but yeah, we do have these idealized standards of how we think a date is supposed to go. We think there's supposed to be this the back and forth, the banter, where you're able to have that instant connection. And sometimes, quite frankly, it doesn't work out the way that we anticipated.
Right.
And also, sometimes you deal with a woman who might be kind of dry, doesn't have a sense of humor, or she doesn't get your sense of humor.
Hmm.
She doesn't know how to, really engage in conversation and kind of pulling it out of her. You got to make it so that, I'm trying to get this woman to, give me something back. And, she has very little in terms of asking questions. And, it can be a real awkward situation when you're sitting across from somebody trying to have a good time, but also trying to converse, but there's no connection there. So I know you're married and everything, so those days are pretty much gone.
Well, I went through that before I was married, I was really young. I'll be like, I don't know, 22, 23. And
Mhm.
those lights did the same. That's why I started laughing because he said he was a model. And I guess I got caught up on that word,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
and he looked okay. He looked
Mhm.
fine under them
Mhm.
lights. But that next day I was like, oh my God, what are you modeling?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we've all experienced that. But it's about being open-minded, developing a thick skin and going right back at it. I mean, you just got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I hate to say it, but it's a numbers game, you know.
Hmm.
And like you said, you got to put yourself out there. You've got to interact with, different types of women, and it can't just all be about looks, or status or anything like that. You also, really, really, what you're looking for is a connection in terms of personalities, and you have some things in common. Obviously, as men and women, now we're not going to have everything in common, but if someone is just completely different than you, and they say opposites attract, they do to a certain degree. But I won't say that, if someone's completely different than you, like let's say someone likes to go hiking and you just can't stand hiking, or they run marathons and that's not something you do, or they like to read books and you're not a reader, whatever the case might be, you know.
Or
Um,
deeper values, they could be, I don't know, they could be Muslim and you're Jewish, or something like that, that's completely
yeah, yeah,
incompatible. Where are those
yeah.
children gonna fall in at, so.
Yeah, and that's when it becomes a numbers game. The more you meet, the more you get out there, guys, and the more you talk to women, because you got to get out there and talk. If you're interested in dating, they're not just women are not going to come up to you guys. Okay, they're just not. So if they're giving you what you talked about earlier, social cues, um, or what I like to call choosing signals, okay, approach her, engage in conversation, see if you have something in common, see if maybe she'd like to hang out sometime. And that's what I call it too.
Mhm.
Dating to me is not something that I do. I've never dated in my life. Okay. I've hung out. Like I'm going to get a bite to eat. You want to come hang out with me. You know what I mean? But the whole dating, if you don't already like me, you don't already like my personality, you don't already like my swag or the way I dress or whatever the case might be, the dating is not going to impress you.
Okay,
Okay.
so let me ask you something, be real. When
Yeah.
you hang out, do you flip that bill?
Do I flip the bill?
Do you
What do you
take home
mean?
bill, or when you're hanging out with a female, right? You guys are going to hang out, get something to eat. Do you take manage the bill, or you split the bill?
No, I've never split a bill. If I invite you out, you know what I mean, I'm expecting to pay. Just like if you invite me out, you should be paying. Okay. And this is the thing about females too that you don't understand. If you are the type of female that's willing to share your resources and you're willing to spend every once in a while, and I'm talking about maybe 4 to 1, 5 to 1, because no man is expecting you to spend quite the way a man does.
Right.
Okay. Not that I know. I mean, there are some that do. But if you do say, hey, let me pick up the tip, or don't worry about it, you got the last three, let me get this one, goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that you're willing to share with your resources, that you're a giving person,
Right.
that it's not always about taking all the time. So that is something that is really key and is really important when it comes to dating, ladies, is understand that you sharing, especially if there's a guy you're interested in, goes a long way. And a lot of times guys will be like, nah, I got it. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we want to be macho and we want to show that we're the man and all that. But just offering,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is something that I think men really appreciate.
When you mentioned difficulty maintaining, women, it's hard to get information out of women, some women, right?
Mhm.
The man is usually put in a position where they have to maintain the conversation, right? And
Mm,
that can be a hindrance,
yeah,
not knowing what to talk about, or so reading helps. I mean, just develop a skill of reading every a half hour a day. It broadens your mind.
mhm.
It improves your vocabulary. It gives you things to talk about. And I'm not saying you have to read the newspaper or something that's, just totally boring. Pick what you like, but just read. Just take 30 minutes a day to read, and it improves your vocabulary, it improves your social skills, and it gives you topics to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean when it comes to social skills, a lot of guys, have poor social skills. And I'm gonna give you some advice, guys. Learn how to ask the right questions when it comes to women. Okay. Find out what they like to do for fun, what their interests are. Okay. And you'd be surprised at how easy it is to talk to women when you're talking about something they're interested in.
Hmm.
Okay. Let me give you an example. If you go and say, hey, so just out of curiosity, what are some of the things you like to do for fun? What do you do in your spare time? You know,
Hmm.
woman's not going to open up to that. Okay. She might say, hey, I like to, I'm a homebody. I like to chill and watch movies and this and that. Say, oh yeah, well, I like comedy. You know what I mean? I'm a big comedy guy, and I like, you know, certain actors. I like Denzel Washington or whatever the case might be. Did you see this movie here? Yeah, that was pretty good. Just came out, blah, blah, blah. And that's how you start a conversation. It's not always about trying to grill her, and get to know what was your last relationship like and how many kids do you have? And you know what I mean?
Right.
Really,
Too much on
yeah,
the
yeah.
first
Keep it,
encounter.
keep it real light, guys. Especially on that first and second date, keep it real light and just talk about things that they're interested in, and get to the point. If you're and the other thing too, when you're complimenting women, right?
Hmm.
Get to the point where you tell her, oh, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. They done heard that so many different times. You know, what you want to do is you maybe want to compliment her on a piece of jewelry, or those shoes are really nice. That goes well with your outfit. I like your style and how you wear your hair, and things like that. Instead of just saying, oh, you're a beautiful woman. I sure like to drink your bathwater and all that kind of nonsense. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? No, but I'm just saying, you know, ease up, bro. You know,
too much,
huh?
too much
It, it's
bathwater.
it's
Oh.
it's 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 okay to compliment a woman. I think that's a great thing to do, but don't get to the point where you seem almost like you're kind of desperate or you're kind of overdoing it a little bit. So
Right.
just wanted to give out that little bit of information to you guys.
Another thing is over reliance on online dating, which can damage your self-esteem because you're putting yourself in a isolated, you're cutting off your social skills, you're putting yourself in an isolated situation, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment
Mm.
because you got to contend with the fake profiles, it's just get rid of the online dating. It's not gonna work. It doesn't work.
No. I agree.
It
I
doesn't work.
I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, probably less than 5% would have actually gotten a good match. But to be honest with you, unless you're going like with an eHarmony, or I forgot the one where people who are over the age of like 40, 50 years old, where, you're trying to get a match, you're
Hmm.
really interested in, trying to find a match. But going on to little Tinders and what was it, Bumble or whatever it is, and swiping left and swiping right, for guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, it really don't work. It doesn't work for females either, because all they're getting is a bunch of junk mail, you
Hmm.
know, a bunch of junk in there. Oh, you look so gorgeous. Good morning, sweetheart, and all this nonsense. You know what I mean? It's like, nah, bro. If you really wanted to get to know somebody, maybe you looked at their profile and you were digging them, take it offline. You know,
Right.
hey, here's my telephone number. Can you maybe give me a call? Can we maybe, meet up at a coffee shop, okay, at a local place where she feels comfortable? Take it offline, get to the point where you engage in a conversation by telephone and not just texting, guys, actually talking to that woman, you know, because a lot of times we get caught up into sending messages and DMing and all that stuff. Now, you want to talk to the person, say, hey, I really like to get to know you. You seem like, I looked at your profile, seemed like it was pretty cool. And, maybe we can hang out sometime, you know? I
Right.
think that's the approach. If you're going to use online dating, use it to set up an actual date, and not just
Know
get.
the sites. Know the difference of site. There's sites that are hookup sites, and then
Mm.
there's sites like you said, eHarmony, the older sites where they're really trying to match and
Yes,
date,
yes.
So no, do your homework, if you are going to use those vehicles.
And I can tell you this too. I would almost guarantee that you have more success with the ones where you have to pay money,
Hmm.
because those are people that are intentional.
Right.
Okay. When all you're doing is swiping, was it swipe right? I think it is. I haven't even done it, so I don't know which one way you swipe. You know what I mean? And then guys, understand this too, that um most of the time women swipe left. If it's swipe right for, yeah, I like him, they most of the time they swipe left, because remember we talked about this last time, women are really interested in only 20% of the guys. Okay.
Hmm.
So unless you are what they call a Chad, okay, which or Tyrone, which is the guy that most women, are looking for, and you don't meet that the 6'6" with the 6 foot height,
Well, wait a minute.
six-figure
Who's
income and
Chad
the
and
tag.
Tyrone?
Huh?
Hold on, hold on. Describe Chad and Tyrone. Who, because I'm
Chad,
too
Chad,
slow here. So,
Chad and Tyrone is the guy when he walks in and all the women tap each other and say, "Look at him."
oh, okay.
Okay, that's the guy. The guy
Okay.
that women, and let me just tell you, if the women aren't coming up to you, bro, and they're not giving you choosing signals on a consistent basis, you're not a Chad or Tyrone. Okay. So we're talking Denzel Washington in his prime, Boris Kojo, Idris Elba, Brad Pitt. These are the type of guys that are the Chads and Tyrones. These are the ones that
Gotcha.
women, when
Gotcha.
women see them, it's like, look at him, you know. And most men don't fall into that category. Most men are just average looking or maybe above average, got a little swag to them, but most guys are not going to be, women are not going to really pay you any attention online, to be honest with you. And you can go look it up. The numbers are there.
Oh,
You
yeah, I'm
know,
gonna look it up.
yeah, women don't really. Now, women, on the other hand, get a lot of attention, but it's from a lot of clowns, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
So you've got to sift through all that garbage. You might get 100 DMs and maybe five of them, are viable options. But that's why it's kind of a waste of time to me. That's just my opinion.
Wasted time. You're right. And on that note, we're gonna take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about men and having struggles with finding the right woman. So another thing that comes to mind is men have a tendency to give up too quickly after rejection, which, rejection hurts. I mean, it's tough sometimes. I'm in sales, and out of 10 calls, 9 of them are going to reject, so you have to build up that tough skin. And also realize that consistency is key. Just keep at it. Keep at it.
And overall, I think that's really good advice in terms of being persistent with, I won't say many women, but more than one woman, but being persistent with one woman and just keep trying to, get her to get you out of the friend zone, okay, so to speak, in my opinion, is a waste of time. You know, choose the
Oh
women
no,
that,
you hear stories, success stories where
yeah, but
and
you spend
chase.
your whole life trying to cater. You know what I mean? And seriously, it really puts men at a disadvantage when you get to the point where you're just trying to win her over, with the flowers and the candy and the this and the that. And it's like, if she really likes you, you don't really have to do all that. But I will say that being persistent and consistent when it comes to meeting women, okay, and doing that on a regular basis, okay. And then if you find a woman who maybe gives you, a little bit of resistance, maybe because she's been through, some tough times and had some, failed relationships, but she likes you, okay,
Mhm.
and you're trying to convince her, like, hey, I'm a good guy, I'm gonna treat you nicely, blah, blah, blah. Now, from that standpoint, then I would agree being persistent is a good thing because you already know she likes you. It's just that now she may not be in the right space, maybe just got out of a relationship recently, she's not ready to date again. That you might kind of, back off a little bit, maybe revisit it at a later time, let her know, maybe every couple of weeks, hey, just want to let you know, I'm still here, you know, if you'd like to meet up for coffee or get a bite to eat or something, let me know, maybe we can hang out sometime, that I agree with.
And sometimes the woman doesn't know what she wants. It may take the man being a little persistent and consistent to kind of show himself, then it's like, oh, okay, maybe I will give this guy a chance. Women don't always know what they want either. So we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, if they're not as trusting at that point in time too, like if they've had
Right.
failed relationships and maybe at this time, I've been there, done that. I treated this man well. He didn't really reciprocate. So now, I'm a little leery when it comes to dating, or every time I go out on a date, doesn't seem to work out. Sometimes I get ghosted, So if a woman is going through that, where she's seen so many men that, she thought was a potential mate, and all of a sudden, it falls through, it doesn't really work out, and that happens time and time again. Yeah, that can kind of wear on you a little bit too. So I get what you're saying about being persistent.
Yeah.
I think in some cases there are times when you need to be persistent and consistent.
And it highlights the fact of in-person dating. right? You can only read those clues and those signs and see that if you're in their face,
Mm.
right? Those are them clues that you have to be dating in person to read her, to see what she's saying. She just rejected me. And here's one of the things in sales. Until you hear the word no, you just keep going, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
So you have to build
listen.
up that thick skin a little bit, you know.
I,
I can see and follow-ups leading into the next thing where busy lifestyles and priorities get ahead of us, right? So it can be difficult when a man has to continually follow up with a woman, right? Careers get in the way, personal growth, and it can leave little time or energy for dating.
mm.
So I think men, if you're really serious about getting married, you have to put that on the priority list as well. You know, you have to work that into your schedule and if you're going to be successful at finding a mate.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm a pretty busy guy. I do brand strategy marketing. You and I do the podcast. We've got our partnership going. I do the taxes. I'm involved in basketball. I've got a lot going on in my life. And
You're not even in Atlanta half the time, so
exactly, exactly. And I go from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
right.
every night. So dating really is something I have to put on the back burner,
Mhm.
okay? Because there's goals I want to accomplish. And a lot of times men can get to the point where we become so goal oriented that we don't leave time to be able to have a social life, and that's something we need to have that balance between work and social. It's really important. Have time for friends, have time to hang out and go check out a ball game, have time for dating or meeting women. It's really important that we have that balance. And also, we live in a society right now where women, quite frankly, are busy as well. Okay, and we have to respect the fact that they too are pursuing their career. So, guys, you got to be careful about you know trying to speed up the dating process because sometimes they may be going to school or pursuing a degree or perhaps trying to further their career or their career may keep them busy. And then we also have a situation when we're dealing, especially as older men, dealing with women who have children. So that's another thing where we have to understand that people have busy lives, both men and women. If you have children in your life, we have to take that into consideration as well. So it's not easy.
Uh,
Back in the day, 30 years ago, for the most part, we just seem to have so much more time available. So dating was easy. But now it's kind of like, well, on Saturday at 12 o'clock, maybe I can fit you in. And it's like, and that I'm a spontaneous person. So that doesn't really work for me. Okay.
mm.
So a woman who's not spontaneous, who can't say, all right, give me a couple hours, I get myself together, I'll meet you out at such and such. If it has to be Saturday at 8 o'clock, maybe I can, that's not gonna work.
Right, right. But we do have to, in today's lifestyles, we may have to adjust our lifestyles and prioritize. Because think about it, if you have to prioritize to date, it's only going to get worse. What happens when you get married and then you have the family? You're really going to have to stop prioritizing and putting them in. So it's that balance. It's with everything. We just have to make sure we have that work-life balance there, and also for our own health. So we don't burn ourselves out.
Mhm.
Both mentally and physically. So,
And before we go on to the next topic, Vanessa, I just want to add one more thing.
mhm.
Guys, before you start dating, get your finances, get your career, you know what I'm saying? Get to the point where you're stable before you date. Okay. It's really important that you as a man are able to maintain your lifestyle, you're able to maintain your household, okay, before you start engaging with a woman in any type of relationship, because a lot of times, guys, we don't have it like women. Women can go 6 months, a year, 2 years, pursue their degree, go and get their master's, whatever. Guys don't operate like that. We have very little patience when it comes to being alone, and we hate to be by ourselves. I've learned over the years to be by myself and not always have to have a woman in my life. But when I was younger, I mean, it was constant,
Mhm.
constant. And a lot of times you got to take a break, work on yourself, work to become the best version of yourself. And now when you step out there, guess what? The floodgates are going to open up and you're going to be surprised at the number of women that you can attract that you couldn't attract before you had it together.
Right. You're in a different mindset.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
mindset attracts
And,
wherever you're at in your mindset, that's what you're going to attract.
and it gives you what is most important when it comes to women, which is confidence. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how good looking you are. I don't care what your status is in the community. Nothing beats confidence. Okay. And getting to the point where you know you're the best version of yourself is going to give you that confidence.
Right. It's also, and this is where I say men suffer in silence. We as women don't realize the pressure that men put on themselves. They deal with the economic and financial pressures of the world, right? They're concerned about their financial stability. And if anything comes in that, that can really bring down a man's confidence. His he feels unworthy
Mm-hmm.
and hesitant to start a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about most good men. I'm not talking about this, but most men feel this, and us women have to recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, like you say, s- eliminate the being the problem. I want you to take me out, and I want $100 dinner because the Cheesecake Factory is not good enough for me. Become part of the solution and not the problem. Be aware of because a man's innately built to provide, so
Mm-hmm.
he's already feeling that, and just be aware of that.
Yeah, but you can feel inadequate if you're not able to provide at the level that women are expecting you to be able to provide.
Hmm.
And when I talked about being the best version of yourself, that means being the best post office worker, UPS guy,
Right.
person who stocks the shelves, whatever the case might be. Okay, doesn't mean that you need to be making 100 grand or more, or
No.
have this business in order for you to date. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, a lot of times men feel like they're inadequate because of the pressure that's being put on them to have to provide these elaborate uh, excursions and dates and trips and this and that because they're seeing this online and they're like, wow, I just went to Dubai. Well, I'm not taking you to Dubai. Okay, let's keep it 100.
Right.
Ain't gonna be no Dubai. We're going to Cheesecake Factory on Tuesday. Do you want to go?
That's
If you
around the
don't want
corner.
if you don't want to go, fine. I'll call up, Janet or Shaniqua and see if maybe she wants to go. And
Yep.
that's why, guys, I'm gonna tell you another thing too, is keep a rotation of women. And I'm not talking about going out and necessarily being intimate with women. I'm talking about keep a rotation when you're out here dating, when you're meeting different women, okay? And you're getting to the point where you're actually, I don't want to say interviewing, but you're getting to know, women before you decide to be with that one woman. Okay. Because like Vanessa said at the beginning, we're trying to get to the point with this show where we're talking about monogamy. Okay. And there may be times when we talk about some other stuff too. But for the most part, for this segment right here, we are talking about getting to the point where you're getting with one woman, you're getting to know a variety of different women. So now you can kind of whittle that down to, what you think is a good partnership or a good connection.
Absolutely. Mental health is also challenges that both men and women are dealing with today. But let's focus on the men. Issues like anxiety, depression, social phobias, PTSD. What is it? Post traumatic
Traumatic,
PTSD,
yeah,
post traumatic.
stress disorder, yeah.
Those are all mental health issues.
Hmm.
We have to start looking as a society. We have to start looking at mental health as a condition, just like or a disease, just like high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. There's nothing wrong with taking a proactive approach and taking charge of your mental health. If you need to see a counselor, if you need, because if you don't take control of it, nobody else will. It will take control over you. So it's always good to check yourself, be up on your health. Make your health your priority. And not only just in mental health, just health in general. We are all getting older, we have to be around for certain things and just take care of yourself. To put that in as a priority too in your schedule, then I'm going to get up and work out every day. I'm going to try to eat right, so you can be the best version of yourself.
And we need not think that going and speaking to somebody, as a negative thing, because a lot of times it doesn't mean that you're crazy or
Mm-mm.
you your life is necessarily spiraling out of control. sometimes you may just need somebody that can kind of prioritize things for you, kind of get to the point where they're able to put things in order, they have you thinking more in a positive way, and help you to solve problems. Okay. So I know people in my family, friends that have gone ahead and gone to sessions, and I've seen dramatic improvements in it.
Hmm.
Okay. And so a lot of us men, like you said, suffer in silence, and that is part of the depression, you know, also because we don't have an outlet. We don't have a place where we can go and voice, how we feel and what we're thinking. Because a lot of people, what they say is, "Oh, just suck it up and deal with it. You're a man,"
Right.
you know?
You're a man. Hmm.
Yes, yes. So we don't have that outlet quite the way that women do. There's a lot of times where, I want to be able to talk about something and I know a lot of people don't want to hear, your problems and what you're dealing with. I mean, it's okay if you're talking to somebody for a little while, but if you keep doing it over and over again, after a while, that can kind of wear on somebody. So if you find yourself constantly talking about what you're dealing with and you feel like maybe, the anxiety and depression is starting to kick in, that's probably a good time for you to go to speak to somebody.
Right. Or even a prior relationship. You're on that date and you're constantly bringing up the prior relationship. Yeah,
Right.
that's a clue too that you might need to speak to somebody and let that
That,
go.
that's a no-no, fellas. Do not talk about anything that had to do with any prior relationship, either good or bad, to be honest with you. Because most of the time, people don't, if you're trying to build something with somebody, they don't want to hear about your past
Right, right,
when
right.
it comes to women, and it's a real delicate balance that you have to have when it comes to things like mental health and talking about things that have happened to you in the past, especially when you're trying to meet someone, because we are
Right.
talking about dating. So you got to be real careful about exposing too much and volunteering too much. Now, if
Yeah.
someone asks you a question, yeah, you probably want to be as straightforward as possible. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't suggest that you volunteer it.
Yeah, don't lead with that. Not at least on the first couple of dates. At some point, as your relationship grows, you're gonna have to bring it out, and it's part of getting to know each other. But, yeah, don't lead with that.
I, I,
All right, with that, we are going to take one last break, and then we are going to come back and wrap it up, people. We're back, everyone, and we're going to wrap this up with some solutions for you because we are solutions, not just problems. So, one of the things we want to start off, some advice to give you is it's important, again, to date in person. You want to be able to connect with that person, read their body language, and get to know them. Come out of your comfort zone. If you feel like if you're too comfortable, you're not getting anywhere, you're probably not doing it right. You're not in the right zone, right? Get involved. Some places to get involved with outside of like Brian B was saying earlier, spending money, but you can also date within the community. You can meet people at charity events, a hobby, pick up a hobby. Those are all ways to get outside and get in front of people. Low self-esteem and fear of rejection. Change what you can and accept what you cannot. There's just some things about ourselves that we cannot change. Get rid of people approval. Understand that how we look at ourselves and view ourselves isn't always how everybody else is. We know our flaws. They're highlighted to us. Change that what you can, but if you can't, learn to accept it and get out of the people approval mindset. You are you. Have confidence and learn to love yourself as who you are. For those who set high expectations, counsel with a few long-term married couples. Get to know a new perspective. They'll they will counseling with married couples who've been married for a long time. They will give you a fresh understanding of what you go through with marriage. So it's always nice and good to counsel, good idea to counsel with couples who've been married. Social skills, like we said earlier, reading can help. Stay off the online dating. Stop getting played. It just doesn't work. But don't give up. Know what you want. Don't compromise and keep going after it. Persistence, consistency. If you're suffering with a busy lifestyle, welcome to the real world. We all are. But we got to learn to prioritize. We got to get to comfortable with that work-life balance. And if you can't, examine why. Is it one of the previous issues that we mentioned that's keeping you from moving forward? Is there something underlying there where you're kind of using the busy, prioritized life, the busy lifestyle as a shield? And mental health. Take charge of your health. Never be ashamed to seek help. Mental health is just that. It's an illness or a condition, just like high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. We've come such a long way in the mental health area. There's professionals out there. Sometimes we just need clarification, like B said earlier. We just need to talk it out. Don't be ashamed to address any mental health. But the key is to stay on top of your health in general, and keep that at the top of your priority list. So with that said, that concludes this show today. Be Real, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you mentioned one word that I thought was really important, and that is uncomfortable. Okay. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable, guys, when you're out here trying to date. Okay. But you want to be persistent and you want to get to the point where, you're doing it on a regular basis where you're talking to women. It's not always about talking to them in a romantic way. Just get used to talking to women and having conversations with them, which may lead to, in a romantic relationship, but it may just get to the point where it's a business or a friendship type relationship. Okay. So don't always think that, hey, oh, here's a beautiful woman. I need to, to bag her. I need to land. You know what I'm saying? No, it's not always about that. A lot of times you just need to practice, get out there, put yourself out there, even though it might be uncomfortable. Just like if you're in business, okay? It's not easy to always approach people to try and do business. Okay, that's understandable. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. The same thing with women.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, this concludes today's show. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you heard today, please share, subscribe and share. We are trying to get an audience of 5,000 people. So we want to monetize YouTube. We are trying to go back to the radio. We're trying to get on iHeartRadio. So we want to get the word out. We need the support. So please subscribe and share with everyone that you think would be interested in these type of topics. Again, next month, we're coming out with mental health. So stay tuned in. We will begin in that session next week. And we are going to have some professionals on our show next week. So, or next month, talking about mental health.
And I do want to say this one last thing. This month we talked about relationships, men and women, that type of thing. But moving forward, we're going to be talking about things that are taking place in our community, talking about finances, ways that you can, make money or start a business or, manage your finances, dealing with children or dealing with stuff that's going on within your family dynamic. So we're going to be talking about a variety of different subjects moving forward. So stay tuned and look forward to being able to provide information moving forward.
Until next time, take care of yourself and stay motivated.